break that's coming in this morning. We're now getting you details about what's on the agenda in the discussion of the Corps Commander level meet at Chushul that will start at 10:30 this morning. The talks, we understand, won't be restricted to one or two flashpoints, but the overall situation in all contentious areas of Ladakh at the line of actual control. The focus is going to be on stabilizing the situation because tensions have spilled over. India will be raising Chinese attempts to change status quo in Chumar, Depsang, Demchok, Gogra, Galwan, Pangong Lake, as well as Trig Heights. Now, the proposals of various previous meetings that's on June 22nd by both sides will also be reviewed in this meeting that's going to be happening in about 1.5 hours from now at 10:30 this morning in Chushul, which is on the Indian side. Let's take this across to Gaurav Sawant for more details. Gaurav, good morning. Just break down for us what really is expected in this meeting that will be happening at 10:30. We understand that there are going to be several points that will be discussed, particularly on the situation across Ladakh now.
You're absolutely right. So let's take this step by step and let's begin with Galwan. Galwan was where the two had decided after the flashpoint. General Liu Lin on the Chinese side and General Harinder Singh on the Indian side, they had decided that there would be a disengagement of troops. Now, whether that disengagement has happened, remember the Chinese told India today, told their Indian counterparts, India today has learned that they will be moving back, and there were reports of some disengagement of troops, some additional vehicles moving back, but not enough to show that the Chinese were sincere about moving back from Galwan. That will be reviewed today, whether subsequent to that information filtering out, has there been more withdrawal, and is that to the satisfaction of the Indian side? If Indian side certifies that, then there will be more withdrawal on the Indian side. This is how this is to be taken forward, and the Corps commanders at their level and at the level, 1 and 2 tiers below them, which is at the level of the division commanders and the brigade commanders, are now to regularly interact to talk about disengagement. A cause for serious concern, Akshita, is that last time the Chinese used this period of disengagement and talks to reinforce themselves. That is why for India to trust Chinese is extremely difficult, especially when they claim that they are disengaging and they end up fortifying themselves even further. So that is why these talks today become extremely crucial, because India will give China evidence of their perfidy, if I may, that they talk about disengagement and then strengthen themselves in those areas.
And that exactly is the point, Gaurav, that we can't really afford to trust the Chinese or anything they say. On June 22nd, the outcome of that meet was that there was a mutual decision to go ahead and disengage at all points. Now, with India going ahead with this fresh round of talks, is there going to be a demand that if the Chinese really do stand by the fact that they want to disengage, they must prove it on the ground by moving back?
You're absolutely right. So, the last talks were specifically about Galwan. This time there will be talks about Galwan, and this time actually if you move all across from the Karakoram ranges, in Depsang Plains, Daulat Beg, Oldie, that is where the Chinese had mobilized. Of course, that mobilization, according to my sources, is not such a major cause for concern because they haven't crossed India's red lines as they have specifically at Pangong So. And Pangong So would be the trickiest part, coming down to the Chumar, Demchok. In these areas also there is mobilization, but that prima facie appears to be a defensive mobilization and not offensive mobilization. But Pangong So is an area of grave concern for India, and that is where it remains to be seen, whether the Chinese are withdrawing. In Galwan, anyways, because of rising water in the Galwan Nala, the Chinese are in a very tricky position. So they may have to reduce their troop strength. So that is not about Chinese, their honesty to be visible on ground, because that is nature, and India being on a higher ground, that may push them back. Pangong So remains India's biggest cause for concern at this point of time, Akshita.
Gaurav, thank you for joining us with all those updates. Let me also take this across to Abhishek Bhalla, who's been giving us details of what really is on the agenda of this meet. Abhishek, the last time around a meeting happened, it happened on the Chinese side of Moldo. This time, with this meeting happening at 10:30 in the morning, is it a mutual decision to have another huddle, or was this again called by China?
Akshita, it was a mutual decision like in the previous meetings that took place on the 22nd of June and before that on the 6th of June. Now, the key areas for this dialogue will be not restricted to just a couple of places like Galwan or Pangong, which were the biggest flashpoints. Of course, they remain a great concern, and sources say if these two places can cool down and, a solution to these two places can be found out, the entire eastern Ladakh sector can find a resolution. But there have been rapid developments in the last 1 week because there have been forays made by the Chinese in some of the other sectors, and that's why what sources tell me is that, all contentious areas will be up for discussion this time. And, the reason for that is because places like Depsang, Chumar, Demchok, Gogra are some of the places where, there has been an escalation in the last few days. So the situation has changed from what it was on 22nd June. On 22nd June, it was decided that the two sides will move back a little. That was supposed to be 2 to 3 kilometers in some of the sectors, so that there is no physical proximity to avoid, a clash like what happened on 15th June in Galwan. Other than this, both sides will get to the table their proposals that they had made last time, and a review will be done of those suggestions, and a way forward is likely to be discussed to find some kind of permanent resolution to the ongoing tussle.
All right, Abhishek, thank you for joining us with all those details. We'll keep coming to you because that meeting is set to take place at 10:30 this morning. Now, the deployment